Good morning and welcome to the Moon Griffon Show. I'm your guest host today, Brett Geymann, sitting in for the vacationing Moon Griffon. Brandon, where is Moon? Is he on a Caribbean cruise or what's he doing?
I don't know where he's at. He's somewhere probably along the Gulf Coast or something like that.
Can you imagine the chaos that's happening over there?
Yes.
Hey, we've got a great show lined up for you this morning, and obviously we're going to be taking your calls. Brandon, what's that number since you haven't given it to me yet?
It is the Hickson Hazard Hotline, 1-844-7-MOON-07. That's 1-844-7-666607.
We got a great show lined up. We're going to be talking federal and state issues. So if you want to call in and comment and give your thoughts on that, please do that. And we're going to start the show off this morning with a guest, a good friend of mine, a former colleague of mine, the newly elected Congressman Mike Johnson from the 4th Congressional District. Mike, are you on the line?
Hey, Brett. Good to talk to you, brother.
Hey, man. How are you doing this morning?
We're doing great. We have just begun the quote-unquote August recess of Congress, which just simply means we do district work for this month, and we've got town halls scheduled every day. It's just a busy time. We got 15 parishes in the 4th Congressional District, so it's a lot of ground to cover, and we're going to give it our best shot this month.
Well, Mike, before we get into the issues, and I know we're going to be pressed to get everything covered in the time that we have together this morning, I want to just tell you and make sure you get this out before we do run out of time, that I appreciate what you're doing, and I think you're doing a magnificent job, and I think you are the example for everyone else in Congress, and I wish everyone would follow you, and, you know, you just do a great job. You hold yourself well, the respect you bring to the office, and I have followed you and others on many, if not all, of the very important votes that you all have done in the past year. And I think you've just done a magnificent job. You've got a 100% rating with Conservative Review. I can't think of one vote that you've cast that I am aware of that I would have done different. And I just want to thank you for that and tell you that you're doing a wonderful job, and you certainly are the shining light in our delegation and actually in Congress as a whole.
Well, I'm grateful for that, humbled by it, brother, and that's high praise coming from you, because you and I have very similar philosophy, as you know, about limited government and the protection of our liberties, and all these pressing issues really touch on all those things. So thanks for saying that, man. I really appreciate it.
Well, and again, thank you for being there for us. I know it's a crazy job. You know, you left Baton Rouge as you and I served, for the listeners to understand, you and I did serve 1 year together, but you left Baton Rouge, which is chaos in itself. And you go into D.C., which is, just a big old mess. And let me just jump right in something that I am frustrated about, as an individual taxpayer, not working for a big corporation, individual health care policy that I just had to renew, costing me, and my family upwards of $24,000 a year, close to $30,000 a year. Mike, it's unsustainable, and I know you guys have been battling on that issue. I'm frustrated. I know that many of the people that I talk to out in the community are frustrated. I've made phone calls to people like me, just middle-class folks that are self-employed, asking them, hey, what have you done on insurance? And you would be surprised, maybe you're not surprised, I think most people would be surprised how many people don't have coverage right now. They've just given it up because they cannot afford it. Mike, where are we headed with this? Give us some hope, man.
That's the $1 trillion question, my friend. I had a town hall in Shreveport last night, and it was in the middle of town, and a room full of Democrats, and of course the indivisible folks, and then protesters and all that. And we talked about this issue for about an hour, and I said, listen, the Obamacare, whether you want to face the reality or not, is imploding. That is not hyperbole. It's not a talking point. It's happening right now. We've got premiums skyrocketing, deductibles skyrocketing at the same time. It does you no good to have a health plan that you can't afford to use. I mean, people have $13,000 deductibles, and it's just an unsustainable position. At the same time, we have fewer insurance options for consumers because we have insurers who are running for the exits for obvious reasons. They're losing hundreds of millions of dollars, the large companies, on an annual basis. They're not going to be able to do it anymore. And Brett, we've had 89 different insurance companies, insurers pull out of the Obamacare exchanges just since January. And in this, by January 2018, we go over the cliff because we already know, just as of Friday, we already know you're going to have at least 49 counties in the country will have no insurance provider at all. That they don't have an option at all on the exchanges. And we currently, as we speak, we got 42% of the counties in this country only have one insurer left. So We have to fix the problem. And I cannot overstate the level of our frustration on the House side and seeing the Senate just, have this whole effort evaporate last week.
And you made
so much work into it.
Yeah, and you made some very good points, and I know you guys went through a tough time on the House side, ultimately came up with a plan that you all were able to support and get over to the Senate. We were hoping to see them do at least a skinny repeal where you guys could go in a conference and hopefully at the end of the day come out with something for us. But what irritates me and what frustrates me is the fact that you read on Twitter and see on the news, Senator Murkowski from Alaska is getting applauded in the airport and people are crying because she was one of the 3 Republicans that voted not to repeal. No one's talking about us. The media and others are not. So what about all these middle class, lower end middle class, higher end middle class, hardworking individual families that don't have a group policy with some big corporation or other means that are having to go out and get their own insurance, and they just absolutely cannot afford it. And that is what they are not talking about. I know you are, and I know some of your colleagues are, but Mike, that's the battle that we have to win. I mean, they're going to squeeze the middle class completely out, and we're going to have nothing.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. And this is not something that could be brushed under the rug. I mean, I had House colleagues on Friday when we left town saying, well, health care is over. Now we'll just move on to tax reform. Listen, tax reform is critical. I mean, we have to get that done. It's the next agenda item, but we ought to be able to walk and chew gum at the same time. And we cannot just pretend that this issue doesn't exist. We have to go back to the drawing board and get it done. And maybe some of the features of the first bill will survive and be a part of the solution. But I am in prayer, my friend, that our colleagues on the Senate side don't just wash their hands of this and think they can walk away. The people are not going to accept that because they can't. I mean, 19 million Americans took the penalty this year under Obamacare. They paid a fine when they did their tax return because they didn't buy insurance. You know why they didn't? Because they couldn't afford it.
They can't afford it. That's right.
Right. And then you've got, these young, healthy folks who say, well, that's an utter waste of my money. I'm a consumer. I should be able to make a free choice, and I choose not to buy an expensive policy with a bunch of features that I'll never use. They're being a rational, citizen making a sound economic decision. The government shouldn't force them to do that. And the mandate under Obamacare was set on a faulty premise to begin with. Now we're seeing the effect of it. And as we said, the thing is about to collapse. No
question. And the one thing, too, that I want to make sure that the listeners understand is that the federal government is bailing out the insurance companies, essentially guaranteeing them a profit at the end of the year. So I see notes from people like Blue Cross or from organizations like Blue Cross opposing what some of you all are trying to do. They like the status quo. At the end of the year, they're getting a check. They're getting guaranteed profit. Everything is lovely on their side. But, hey, again, what about us? And that is the battle line. And I hear Trump tweeting, talking about, well, I'm going to take away the incentive or whatever for Congress and the insurance plan that they have. And what about that? Is that something that you think might happen to get the attention of some of the folks that aren't willing to do something about the plan? Or
well, I don't know exactly what the thread is, but I'm for anything that gets their attention. There is a big myth I see on social media all the time. Why didn't Congress get the same plan as everybody else? What most people don't realize is since 2011, every member of Congress has been on the Obamacare exchanges. In 2013, when all the lights went on, the switches went on for Obamacare nationwide. Since that time, every member of Congress has been on the D.C. Obamacare exchange. So,
right.
We're in the same boat as everybody else.
Right. I think according to what I read, and you would know, but I mean, according to what I read, is he was talking about taking away the portion that the federal government is paying of the congressional health care plan.
Well, all federal employees the government pays part of the premium, and I suppose the executive branch would have some say in that. But look, I'm for anything that gets the attention of the members of the Senate, because we have to get them to act.
Well, and look, again, I appreciate the battle and the fight that you all did on the House side, and moving something over to the Senate. We know, as taxpayers and individual self-employed people like me, something has got to happen and happen real soon. I could buy 2 houses for what I'm paying for my health insurance right now, and it's just not sustainable. And we appreciate what you're doing.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. We gotta cut loose to a break real quick. Mike, can you stay over for one more segment? We won't be long, and we've got a few more things to talk about.
Yeah, I'd love to. Thanks.
Okay,
Brett.
great. We're gonna go to a break, and again, the Hicks and Hyzett hotline. Give us a call in at 1-844-766-6607. This is the Moon Griffon Show. I'm Brett Geymann, your guest host for the day. Welcome back to the Moon Griffon Show. I'm Brett Geymann, your guest host for the day. Joining us on the line is my favorite congressman in the whole United States, Congressman Mike Johnson. And Mike, we left it with health insurance, but I want to switch over to another topic that is important to me and something that I think you and I both share a common interest on, and that is the financial situation in the United States, the budget. I know you guys have crafted a House budget that you're proposing, and also I think in September, if I'm not mistaken, we're going to have to deal with a debt limit increase. So tell us where we are on that and where you see us going.
Yeah, it's a very tenuous situation we find ourselves in right now, Brett, because as you well know, we have almost a $20 trillion federal debt. You know, I was at a town hall last night and I pulled up the U.S. debt clock and I said, everybody just watch this and see if it doesn't give you heartburn. I mean, every second, the debt goes up more than $10,000. It means that every single American owes a debt to the federal government of about $165,000 each. We don't have the money to continue the largesse of the government, the federal government or state for that matter either. And you and I both know that. We fought those battles. So when it comes to raising the debt limit, I just don't think that's a sustainable position for us. I don't think we can continue to do this. I asked the crowd last night, I said, let me just ask all of you, does anyone happen to know, want to venture a guess, what the total estimated wealth of the entire planet is? If you add up all the gross domestic product, all the assets of every country in the world, what do you think that figure is? The number is 74 trillion. That's the estimated wealth of the entire country. We owe 20, just our nation alone. So we've got to think very seriously about what we're doing, how we're doing it. The government's doing too many things. What it doesn't do well. And we've got to right size it, or else we're going to be going over a literal cliff that we can never recover from.
Mike, I think you're absolutely right. You made some very good points, and the three things that cost us a biggest portion of our budget are Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and then guess what? The interest on the debt. And so if you combine those three things together, it consumes a large portion of what is available for us to spend on the things that are important. And again, the more money we borrow, the more interest we owe, and the more that China has a grip on us, because that's who we're borrowing from. But what do you think it's going to take before the Republicans and the conservatives in Congress are willing to stand up and go, you know what, we're just not going to keep raising the debt limit? Because it seems to me every year the conversation becomes, well, we can't shut down government. We can't shut down government. So let's just increase the debt limit and continue to put that burden on our kids and our grandkids. I mean, what do you see? Is there anything that you see moving in our direction where at some point everybody's going to finally say, hey, enough is enough?
Well, I had hoped and thought that the last election cycle was that wake-up call, was that message. You know, the president issued what is called now the skinny budget, which is customary for the White House to do, to submit a proposed budget. And it's a statement of principles. We all know that that's not actually going to be what's enacted. But you know, it took a hard stance on government spending, and I think we have to do that. Look, the Congressional Budget Office, the CBO, which everybody likes to tout on the healthcare debate, they're supposedly the nonpartisan objective group that makes all the analysis on the money. They've projected that gross domestic product is going to be eclipsed by our debt, by entitlement spending in 2030. Right. That's not 100 years down the road. That's right around the corner. So what it means is on those entitlement categories that you just listed, we're going to spend every single dollar of revenue that the country has in tax revenue. So that doesn't even leave a dollar for national security, which is our first most important constitutionally provided responsibility of the federal government. So we are at crisis point right now. I mean, the tipping point is now. It's not something that we can debate and linger on for months or years ahead. We've got to do it right now. And I'm very hopeful that the conservatives, our band of conservatives in the House of Representatives, will be able to hold that line. But it's going to be a very difficult fight.
And Mike, you're absolutely right. And I wish people understood exactly what you just said. Within the horizon of a decade from now, we are going to be at insolvency. And we're going to be consumed with more payments than what we can generate with our gross domestic product. And then people are going to be backing up and saying, hey, why didn't those guys fix it? And that's typical of human nature. It's typical of what you and I have seen as serving as elected officials is People want things fixed, but sometimes they really don't want them fixed. We're going to have to make the tough decisions. Folks like you are going to have to lead on that, and I know you're going to do it. But I am so hopeful that you can get with the conservatives in the Congress and somehow, at some point, begin to say, you know what, enough is just absolutely enough, and we've got to stop this crazy spending.
Well, that's right. We're going to wake up one day, and you know, I really believe it's immoral what we're doing to our children and our grandchildren. I mean, they will literally have a situation that is unfixable if we don't make the tough decisions right now. And look, some of these decisions really aren't tough, Brett. I mean, there's so much waste and fraud and abuse, and you and I both know. We talked about it in the legislature, and it's happening in Congress in spades. There's agencies that do duplicative work. There's regulations that require double the amount of effort from the free market. I mean, all these things need reform, and we're doing it as quickly as we can on that regulatory reform category. But the tax reform is critical, and we've got to lower the corporate tax rate, the highest in the industrialized world. We've got to lower the rates on individuals. If we do that, we can spur on the economy again, and that's the kind of job growth and economic growth that we desperately need right now. That's the only thing that's going to get us out of this hole that we're in.
Well, Mike, I agree with you 100%. And again, thank you so much for giving us your time this morning. I know you've got a busy schedule. You're out in the district today. I think you have several meetings lined up. Appreciate what you're doing. Again, you're my favorite congressman. I think you're a shining light, an example to the delegation here in Louisiana and also to the entire Congress. And I really appreciate what you and your family are doing, the sacrifices that you're making. Keep up the good work, brother.
You're kind, my friend. Good to see you. Good to talk to you, and I hope to see you soon.
All right. All right, this is the Moon Griffon Show. We're going to go to a break. Give us a call on the Hickson Hazard Hotline, 1-844-766-6607. Right on the backside of the break, we're going to be going to the state issue, so come on back and join us.
Now, Brett, before we take that break, because we still got a few more seconds, who do you have coming up? I know you got a great lineup for today.
We have Beryl Amadei, state representative, and Jay Morris, both in the next half hour. And then at 10 o'clock, we have Dale Hoffpower with the Louisiana Family Forum.
Awesome. And
Stephen Dwight at 10:30. So we got a great lineup coming. Welcome back to the Moon Griffon Show. I'm Brett Geymann, your guest host for the day. Brandon, this is the gentler and kinder version of the Moon Griffon Show today.
Yeah.
Moon's out somewhere on vacation having a good time, and we certainly and hope he enjoys time with his family. But we're going to cover for him while he's gone. And give us a call on the Hickson Hotline at 1-844-766-6607 if you want to chime in on what you think we need to be doing here in the state of Louisiana. We're shifting the topic now from federal to state. We got budget issues. We got a fiscal cliff coming. We need tax reform. We got a mess over there in Baton Rouge. And on the line with me this morning, freshman legislator, member of the Appropriations Committee, State Representative Beryl Amadei. Beryl, are you with us?
Yes, sir. Good morning.
Well, how are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing just fine. We're about to do some back-to-school shopping here.
Oh, that's great. What a great time. I always enjoyed doing that. It was one of the highlights of my back-to-school time was with the kids and buying the notebooks and the pens and pencils and what have you. So hope you enjoy your day with them as well. And so, Beryl, you're a member of the Appropriations Committee. You're this is your first term, if I'm not mistaken. And
that's correct.
Give us your perspective on where we're headed, what happened in the session, and some of the things that you think we need to be doing. Because as a taxpayer, I know I'm concerned about the potential of increased revenue coming out of my pocket. On the first segment of the show, we talked about how expensive it is for the average folks out there to afford their health insurance and all the things that we've got to do. And honestly, I don't think most people want to give up any more money. So where are we headed? What do you see happening, and how do you think the session finished out?
Well, I believe that the session finished out with the silver lining of the budget being that we actually managed to pass a budget, and it was balanced. And it was balanced without having to pass any new taxes this year so far. And so those are the good things. Unfortunately, we weren't able to pass any real reform. And my concern is that when I came in last year, we faced a $2 billion shortfall. We took some measures to fix that. Some of those measures included the 1 penny sales tax and the clean pennies, if you remember those discussions. And those were temporary. Those are going to roll off next year. And so the whole purpose of having them roll off next year was to give us a little time to pass some reform. And unfortunately, this past session, there was not a real appetite for reform. So here we are again. Next year, when those pennies roll off, the clean pennies and the extra 1 penny sales tax, we're going to be facing a $1.6 billion shortfall, which is almost where we started. So that's really disappointing.
Well, Beryl, we talk about reform, and you know, as a former legislator myself, we talked about reform, and reform meant fixing the problem, putting the economy and the spending of the state in line. In other words, spending only what the economy can sustain, basing that on some indicator of consumer price index or state gross domestic product or something, not just a wish list from an administration. That's reform in my mind. Tax reform in my mind is a fairer tax, something that helps the average citizen. It's not reform in the eyes of others is how can we raise more revenue? So when I hear the word reform now, I get a little bit scared that doesn't really mean what I think it really should mean. And I know what I think you are saying is we really need to reform both the tax code and the budget process so we can get our house in order. Mid-year budget cuts for however many sessions in a row now. It's the same story over and over. When I was in the legislature, before you got there, we had a $2 billion cliff. That same cliff is still there, and we just haven't had the will and enough votes in the body to be able to fix the problem. So I know as a member of Appropriations Committee, as you are, that you've got some ideas, and hopefully you can help lead that charge. So where do you think we're headed in the next session as far as reform?
Well, first of all, Brett, you've summed that up so perfectly. I want to ask you, would you like to come back and join us in the House?
No, you're doing just fine. Thank you.
Oh, well, the argument has not changed at all. You've hit the nail on the head. We do need reform in how we do the budget. The shortfalls that we've been facing are the same. The funny thing is, while the shortfall is the same, the budget continues to grow. So those who think that we can solve this problem by constantly increasing taxes in every form and including fees and, every other source of revenue, well, maybe we can't, because the budget now stands at $32.6 billion, and yet we still have the shortfall. So I am absolutely in favor of reforming the way that we do the budget, and I came in and I still stand on the principle that you simply should not be spending more than you have. I mean, that's common sense. That's what we do in our household budgets. That's what we do in our business budgets. The only way you can spend more than you have coming in is to finance it. And, the federal government is the big example of that. But the result of spending more than you have coming in means that the next generation gets to pay for it. We just keep passing this along, and we just can't keep doing this.
There's no question, and you made some very good points, and I think over time the legislature has continually kicked the can down the road. You come in this past term, and you walk into a big old mess, and it was left to you, and you guys did some temporary bridges to give you some time to do some reform. Unfortunately, the Republican and conservative members of the Louisiana legislature and the administration, the current administration, have not been able to work together. They're on two different paths. And you guys are on a path of, hey, let's stand still, let's spend what we did last year, let's don't increase spending until we can get some reform measures in. You're trying to live within your means. And then the other path that the administration is on is that we just have to fund everything. We have this wish list. We want to do everything for everybody, and we just can't continue to do that. And you made that point. I mean, do you think you guys came really close this time to being able to make a change? You got criticized in the media. I think you fell a couple of votes short. Do you feel like that momentum is still there going into the next session?
I believe it is, and I hope that it actually picks up while we're in the off season here and back home, and all of us speaking with our constituents directly. What we attempted to do in the House this past session with House Bill 1, which is the main budget bill, was we attempted to pass it appropriating 2% less than what the Revenue Estimating Conference says is going to come in, because historically it has been way off. So our thoughts were, well, let's just simply not appropriate 100%. That way, when a shortfall happens, if we haven't completely covered it with the 2% that we've saved, then we'll at least be that far ahead of the game, and we won't have to make such severe cuts. And, the governor initially liked the idea. He said, I think it's a great idea, but he said, let's do it as soon as we settle the budget. but we felt that we can't settle the budget until we do this.
Yeah.
So that was the big argument during this past session. The House passed House Bill 1 all the way back on May 4th over to the Senate, and the Senate passed House Bill 1 back to us a month later on June 6th, appropriating 100%. And so the discussion between the two houses was, does appropriation equal spending? And so in the House, we felt, well, if you appropriate it, it's as good as spent. And in the Senate, they said, well, just because we appropriate it doesn't mean we're going to spend it all. So that was the big argument, and that's why we weren't able to resolve things in time and had to go into a few more days of a special session.
Well, you guys did a good job on the House side. I know a lot of the Senate members have begun to move your way, and hopefully that will continue to happen. And, Beryl, we're going to take a quick call while you're on the line, so stay with us. We got Joe in Lafayette. Joe, are you with us?
Yes, sir. I just had a quick comment. Y'all been hearing about the budget rules. I'm 65 years old. By the way, this is Joe for Karen Lafayette. Just want to say a quick hi to Bob and Dave if they're listening. Anyway, I got through Bob and Dave. Listen, y'all never going to fix this unless you have a constitutional convention, because most of the budget, something like 7% of it, you can't touch. And I'm so sick of these people coming on. And I like Miss Beryl. She's a wonderful person. Don't misunderstand me. But y'all never going to attack the problem until you have at least a limited constitutional convention. What I don't want y'all doing is going to the people for more and more and more money to just kick the can down the road. And the governor does not want to do it. And quite frankly, if y'all don't face that, we're never going to get out of this hole. So, I mean, what is her opinion on that, and what is your opinion, sir, on at least a limited constitutional convention to permanently change the way business is done in this state? Thank you very much. Thanks
for the call, Joe. Beryl, you want to comment on the constitutional convention idea as part of a solution?
Oh, absolutely. And thank you, Joe, for the compliments. Whenever I came into the legislature, I was ready to propose the bill myself for a limited constitutional convention. Unfortunately, I asked 3 experts who should have been able to give me a proper answer, and they gave me bad counsel. They said that can't be done. So I didn't submit the bill. Well, someone else has submitted a bill for a limited constitutional convention, and it made a little progress, but it has not passed. I am absolutely in favor of a limited constitutional convention because I believe that's the only way we're really going to be able to restructure the budget, and I believe that's the only answer to having a more permanent solution to our budget our constant budget shortfall. And I would not be in favor of a full constitutional convention because I believe that in this day and time, we would have our delegates get bogged down with a whole lot of other issues and end up not focusing on the budget.
Yeah.
But a limited constitutional convention, I'm all for it.
Well, and I think there's a lot of appetite for that thought, at least in theory. I would just bring up some of the downsides to that, you know, who are the delegates going to be, who chooses them, you know, and again, as you said, limited, you know, how do you make sure they don't get off on chasing a rabbit, you know, that they shouldn't be chasing? And those are issues that I think that you would have to deal with as you structured that constitutional convention. But Beryl, as you and I have talked in the past off the air, one of the problems is that we have so much of the budget that is dedicated, but you have to remember the people voted on the constitutional amendments. The people of the state of Louisiana said, we want to dedicate this money for this purpose. So when you end up with your budget, you only have a very small piece of that you can even work with. And so you're very limited. Your hands are tied to somewhat, to a degree somewhat. But again, the people made that decision. So at some point, we have to find a bridge between what the people wanted and how the legislature does their business, and maybe it will take a constitutional convention. So I appreciate
I believe you're correct, and I certainly don't mind at all that the people have voted on those constitutional dedications. However, I think it might be wise if we would put sunsets on those so that they could be reevaluated from time to time, because the priorities of the people of the state change over time.
Right. That's a good idea. We have to leave it right there. Beryl, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day shopping with your grandkids, you said earlier.
Yes.
For school supplies. Thank you for taking time and giving us an update on the legislative session, and I hope you have a wonderful day. We've got to go to a break. This is the Moon Griffon Show, and I'm Brett Geymann, your guest host. Welcome back to the Moon Griffon Show. I'm Brett Geymann, your guest host for the day. We're on the topic now, the state budget issues. We dealt with the federal issues in the first half hour of with Congressman Mike Johnson, and we're going to go to the phone real quick and catch Jay on the road. He's a holdover from the last segment. Jay, are you with us?
Yes, sir, I am. First of all, I am a conservative Republican. I'm very disappointed with our federal government, our state government. We send the cream of the crop to the White House, to the state. We can't seem to find that we don't need to add to the budget, whether it's a state or a federal. We need to cut. The working class, which that's what I am, we're tired of not getting something done up in the White House. With all the investigations, nothing is done, and we're frustrated. We're really frustrated.
I share your pain, and I agree with you 100%, and I told Congressman Johnson at the beginning of the 9 o'clock hour, we are very frustrated, and fortunately we have some good people there that are fighting, but we need more. We need more at the state level and the federal level. And Jay, as voters, we have to hold these folks accountable. That's my opinion. If we don't hold them accountable, we're never going to change anything.
7 or 8 years ago, we took a trip to D.C. with the Tea Party group, and I was really proud of what happened after that as far as voting Mr. Trump. He wasn't my first pick, but I stand with him. But we have got to get some help from our senators, congressmen. And I appreciate what you do. I am a legal immigrant. Been here for a long time, and I am proud of this nation.
All right. Well, Jay, thank you so much for your comments, and thanks for taking time to give us a call this morning on the Moon Griffon Show. Give us a call at 1-844-766-6607 if you want to be a part of the show. That's the Hickson Has It hotline. Now I'm going to go to a former colleague of mine and a friend of mine from North Louisiana. We got to get all parts of the state here. We don't want to discriminate. My friend, Representative Jay Morris. Jay, are you with us?
I am here, Brett.
How are you doing, sir?
I'm great, thank you.
Now, you just flew in from Denver just to be on the show. Is that correct?
Well, I did fly in from Denver. My daughter lives out there, so I was visiting her this weekend.
All right.
But, yes, anything for you.
Yeah, right. Yeah, sure, whatever. Okay, hey, man, it's good to have you here this morning on the show. And if you were able to listen to the earlier segment with Representative Amadei, a member of the Appropriations Committee, we're just talking a little bit about, where we're headed, how the session ended up. You've been there, let's see, is this your third term that you're in right now? This is your second term. So you've got a little bit of experience under your belt, and you've seen some things, different administrations. Give us your perspective on how we did as conservative Republicans in the special session and session that just happened, and also where you think we're headed in the next session coming up.
Well, those are big topics, but I would give us, as far as the Republicans in the House, I would give us a B. Which is pretty good. We had a great idea, I thought, and that is the standstill budget, which was not to spend any more than we spent in the previous year. Of course, we did have mid-year cuts last year, so we spent less than we budgeted by necessity because the money did not come in as predicted, so that was our idea going forward, because we knew we were facing this fiscal cliff next year, and unfortunately the governor got the Democrats and a handful of Republicans to join with them and force on us a budget that we didn't, what I call the conservative wing in the House didn't approve of.
And Jay, the standstill budget, as I remember the conversation going on during the session, again, is just you guys wanted to spend what you spent the previous year and no more.
Exactly.
A few dollars that you had the mandatory add to it, but it was a small amount. Basically, spend the same amount that you did last year. We can all relate to that in our business and our home finances. We're gonna hold the line, and what that did was mitigate part of that fiscal cliff that's coming, because you weren't increasing another $220 million.
Exactly.
And everybody just hold the line. That seemed like a common sense thing to do. But
it did. It didn't seem like an unreasonable thing to do, even for a Democratic governor.
And then, so you took some heat. Members did, and got some projects vetoed. I want to hit on that in a minute, but real quick, I need to take a call before we go to the 10 o'clock break. If you would just hold on the line.
Sure.
If you don't mind, we're going to go to Bo out of Shreveport. Bo, are you with us?
Yes, sir. How are y'all doing today?
We're doing great. Thanks for calling into the Moon Griffon Show. What's on your mind?
Well, I mean, I understand the conservative approach about, there's only so much allocated to that you actually have to deal with because of allocation. At what point, I'm pretty sure everybody in Louisiana would like a new home and a new car and $10,000 a month in the bank, but that's just not feasible. It's not going to happen. Just because we voted on it, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my entire life. It may have worked back then, but it's not working now. And here's the other side of this approach so we were, was it 300 million short last year?
Correct. Roughly, yes.
Give or take. So I don't mean to call anybody out on it, but that's dumb as hell to think that we're going to spend the same amount of money and be in a better position
but
when we already $300 million in debt.
But Bo,
people are leaving the state left and right.
But Bo, keep in mind, and I understand what you're trying to say and your point, but keep in mind that the budget grows by default, usually at the rate of consumer price index, about 2%. So you have a 2% built-in growth in your revenue if you do nothing. And what the legislature on the House side, the conservative side, was saying was, let's just hold the line last year instead of increasing that $200 million or $220 million that they actually did, which was a built-in increase. So holding the line, didn't spend money you didn't have. It actually held the line with what you actually had, if that makes sense.
No, and I understand that aspect of it. But then again, the flip side of that coin is we're at the cliff of where there's going to be nothing left for nobody. You're going to tax me so much that I ain't even going to be able to put milk on the table for my kids because I'm paying out taxes because we invest so much because of this 2% built in.
All right, Bo, I appreciate it. I'm sorry we got to go to a hard break. This is a Moon Griffon show, and we'll be right back after the break. Welcome back to the Moon Griffon Show. I'm your guest host, Brett Geymann, sitting in for the vacationing, beach-going, surfing, whatever, Moon Griffon today, here with Brandon Como. Brandon,
You forgot fishing, by the way.
Oh, yes, of course, he had to go fishing. But I know he's having a good time with his family. We certainly hope he enjoys the week, and we're just trying to cover for him the best we can with a kinder, gentler version of the Moon Griffon Show today.
Still telling the same truth, just in a nicer tone.
Exactly. You can see we even get some of the state reps of feel like they can call in and not get beat over the head today. So I know we still have on the phone Representative Jay Morris, a former colleague of mine, a friend of mine, but and we've been talking state budget. If you want to be a part of the show, it's the Hickson Has It hotline. That's 1-844-766-6607. If you want to be a part of the show, just give us a call. Jay, you still with us?
I am here, Brett.
All right. Representative Morris, I know that we had to cut Bo off right at the 10 o'clock mark, and he was, I think, talking about kind of what you were saying.
Right. I was listening to Bo, and I appreciate his sentiment. However, I think he was a little bit confused. He was thinking that we needed to cut the budget, whereas we were just trying to keep it the same based upon the March numbers after all the mid-year cuts that occurred and just not spend any more. That was the conservative side of the issue, whereas the governor's people wanted to spend a couple $100 million more than we did the year before. And they were able to succeed by having all the Democrats band together with moderate Republicans and a couple of independents to override, so to speak, what the House Republicans tried to do. Well,
and Jay, I think, again, to emphasize again what that was the growth in the budget of the $220 million that the administration wanted to spend. You guys wanted to hold that back and spend just what you did last year, which essentially would have saved the $220 million toward the fiscal cliff that's coming up.
Exactly. So we're going to have these temporary taxes roll off next year, June 30th. And, to minimize what we're going to be facing, we wanted to hold the line on spending. How can the people of Louisiana be happy with us if we renew those temporary taxes or something comparable to them when we're actually spending more money, providing more in government programs, giving state workers raises, and no mean to demean state workers. I've got a lot that are friends and family, but what we can only do so much in this state, and so to minimize that, hey, let's hold the line on spending, Governor Edwards, and if we do that, then as we approach this fiscal cliff and things roll off, and we do need to keep our good universities in business, maybe we can help you do that. But if he insists on spending more money and was able to force that down the conservatives' throats, it puts us in a very difficult situation in trying to help him. That was my essential point.
Well, and Jay, I know that you and others, as you took the stand this past session on the fiscal issues, to hold the line, to try to be more responsible, to track our spending along with what the economy can sustain, the typical operating procedure of an administration is to punish members who don't fall in line. So I've been reading about many members of certain delegations, I know here in the Acadiana region as well, lost projects that the governor vetoed, basically as a slap on the hand for you guys not falling in line. Is that something that happened in your area as well?
Well, let's put it this way. In 25 Republican districts, of the 25 projects line item vetoed out of the capital budget, not the yearly operating budget, there were 28 vetoes. I think 25 were in Republicans' districts. Okay,
let's say that one more time. 28 vetoes on capital outlay projects, which is construction and roads and bridges and things like that state dollars are allocated for outside of the general operating budget. Correct. 28 vetoes, 25 of them were in Republican districts. So that tells me one of two things. Either you guys were asking for projects that weren't worthy, or you guys were being leveraged against you for you not falling in line. What do you think?
Well, I've got my opinions, and I've put it out there on Facebook, so why not?
Oh, man, I tell you, we got a lot of reform, Representative Morrison, needs to happen, not only on the budget process and the tax reform, but also...
listen, I've been trying to champion capital outlay
reform, exactly.
And I've had bills that I've gotten out of the House. This governor is not a backer of capital outlay reform. The Democrats actually voted for it when Bobby Jindal was in office, but now the Democrats have turned on capital outlay reform. Now it all depends on who's driving the train, I guess.
Well,
but we need to separate that from politics.
We do.
No offense to the people who actually got projects in their district not vetoed, but some of them include splash pools and junior league buildings and things like that, whereas certain roads and bridges are vetoed. So, the capital outlay, John Kennedy was who I consider a friend, came to the table when he was treasurer and supported both of my bills to reform capital outlay. He said it was broken, and without going into a lot of detail, we could talk about that all morning. That's the state of things at present.
Well, Representative Morris, keep up the good fight. Thanks for taking time out of your day to give us a call and share your thoughts on what's going on in the state. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day after your long trip home from Denver.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me, Brett. So say hello to Moon for me.
I will, but he's not here. But I will.
Here in Monroe.
All right, man. See you later. All right. Joining us now in the studio, a good friend of mine. We're gonna take a breath from state budgeting for a while and talk about something completely different, although related to some degree. Dale Hoffpower. Dale, how are you doing this morning?
Doing great, Brett. Great to be with you, bud.
All right, Dale, you're a pastor here in the Lafayette region. Is your church in Broussard?
I live in Broussard, pastor Nouvelle Church here in Lafayette.
In Lafayette, okay. So you're a pastor here. You and I have known each other for years, but our paths crossed again when I was in the legislature because you are part of an organization over there, the Louisiana Family Forum. And what I want to talk about today is a little bit about what you guys do and how effective you are and how much I appreciate what you did and what you do in advocating for family values and things that are important to the family among our legislators. And we love to hate lobbyists, but you guys are different in the sense that you're advocating for something that is very important, and yet you don't wine and dine and you don't throw money around and you don't finance campaigns, so you don't have that hammer to hit people over the head. It's just simply a matter of the honor that comes with being recognized from your organization as a legislator for your votes during the session. So tell us a little bit about the Family Forum and what you guys do, and let's talk about some of the legislators and scorecards and all those kind of things. Sure.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity. And the Louisiana Family Forum is one of 40 state organizations affiliated with Focus on the Family. And that's our job description, is to represent faith and family values in the public square. And so oftentimes that is at the state legislature, especially when the legislature's in session. And then what's unique to us is that we try to give honor where honor is due. So for those lawmakers that do stand up for faith and family values and fiscal responsibility, we do our best to honor them. We do that with a gala. And that's based on a legislative scorecard, a report card, just simply a snapshot. It's not complete scientific because, as you know, oftentimes a lot of the battles are fought in committee. Mm-hmm. So this is floor votes that gives us a snapshot of how the legislature is behaving.
Absolutely, it's some kind of an indicator for folks who want to go to your website and on. And before you leave, I want you to be sure and tell people how they can track what you guys do and all that. But it's a snapshot of what your particular legislator individual is doing.
Absolutely.
And then and the body as a whole, you can say, hey, who are the guys and out there that are really fighting for what I think is important on the values that affect the family. It can be finances. You all have dealt with some financial issues before.
Correct.
It can be all sorts of things, but things that are you're advocating for that are pro-family.
Yeah, we typically will register or score life votes, mm-hmm. Educational choice. Right. Always have stood against an expansion of gambling mm-hmm. in Louisiana.
Right.
But some of your guests on the show today would be award recipients because they've just been really been warriors.
Solid,
yeah. And the particular vote Representative Morris was talking about, we actually scored that amendment that was to House Bill 1 mm-hmm. that was kind of the telltale sign of the legislature where it was on the standstill budget. So mm-hmm. That's every family's affected by a budget.
Absolutely,
so
absolutely. While you guys don't get too far in the weeds on budget issues, there have been times, at least when I was there, and I hear that you're still doing the same thing, that you would advocate for responsibility overall.
Correct.
And so there were times where I know I had a one-time not spending
Correct.
one-time money bill in the past that you guys advocated for, and there were other things over the years that you did as an organization because it does affect the family. So when we lose discretionary spending out of our personal income, we have less money to do the things that we ought to be doing, and it affects the family in a negative way. And so you can tie that all together. And you mentioned that you give honor to those legislators, and we're going to talk a little bit about that after the break, exactly how you do that. But essentially it's a score. And so we like to have that score, and we like to do well. But we're going to leave it right there and go to a break real quick. And if you want to be a part of the show, it's the Hickson Hazard Hotline, 1-844-766-6607. And this is Brett Geymann, your guest host for the day. Welcome back to the Moon Griffon Show. I'm Brett Geymann, your guest host for the day, taking the place of the vacationing Moon Griffon, and having a gentler, kinder version of the Moon Griffon Show today. Brandon?
By the way, the fishing tournament champion, Moon Griffon.
No way.
He's been texting me while we've been on the air.
No way.
Yes, he won his fishing tournament this weekend. So
oh, my gosh.
I'll brag on him a little bit on that. I'm sure he'll come Monday and let everybody know.
Well, being a ULM graduate, that's pretty impressive for him. I always like to give him a hard time because I'm a McNeese guy, of course, sitting here in the middle of UL country. I shouldn't be saying that either, but in the studio with me for a few more minutes is Dale Hoffpower. Dale is a member of the Louisiana Family Forum, which advocates for family value votes for legislators while they're in session and keeps a record of what they do. And, we always say we want to hold our legislators and our elected officials accountable, and one of the ways we can do that is by organizations like the Louisiana Family Forum who score and follow those key votes on things that are very important to the family. Finances, life, all those issues that we find important. And yet you're not like the other lobbyist firms that people have a negative thought about, and that you don't throw money around, you don't do all the things that quote lobbyists do. I'm not down. Lots of friends of mine are lobbyists too. I'm not trying to say anything negative about them, but what you guys do is you basically hold people accountable with this scorecard. And I got to tell you, when I was a state rep in the old days, I loved receiving what was known as a Patrick Henry Award. It's the best award you can get of the score. If you were in the 100 percentile range, you got this really nice Patrick Henry to put on your bookshelf, and I've got a few of them.
You got you a collection of them.
Yeah, I got a collection of them. There was a year or two in there I might have missed one, but I have a collection of them, and it was just an honor to be recognized by your organization, knowing that we're being held accountable and that people can see those scores. So let's talk a little bit about how you do that. Where can folks go to find out how their legislator is voting on those issues, and how do you recognize the members of the legislature?
Sure. You can go to lafamilyforum.org, lafamilyforum.org, and the scorecards for 2017, which was just released in the last couple of weeks, is there, and including all the scorecards going back to when it was first initiated in 2004. So you can see a track record across the years.
So if we were going to vote for someone who might be running for a statewide office that used to be a senator or rep in 2005, we can go back and
Absolutely.
see how did that person do, and give us some, like you were talking off the air, it's a snapshot of their vote. It's not everything, but and it's also nonpartisan.
Well, as you know, there's you look at a lot of bills,
right.
Over 1,000 bills every session, and so we narrow them down to the faith and family. And honestly, sometimes, as you know, sometimes an amendment will come up on the floor, not something necessarily we've spoken to, but it really is a divisive or dividing line. It really shows a clear delineation of how the legislature is acting or behaving as a whole. And so sometimes, you know, those votes are used to just demonstrate trends and you know how both the Senate and the House. So as you go to the website, you'll see a Senate scorecard and as well as the House scorecard. And you know, we're going to have the opportunity to honor anybody that voted above 80%. So 80.
And so roughly how many votes are we doing? 10, a score of 10?
Yeah, it's anywhere from 9 and all across those years, maybe on low end 8, but up to 11 or 12.
So it's a pretty good snapshot.
Around 10,
yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so those that do vote 100%, we award them with a Patrick Henry bust, and
with a date on it.
and so you can follow your years. But obviously, Patrick Henry is a champion of liberty.
Right.
And so that is how we honor the top award recipients. The next level down, maybe you miss one vote, and so or 2 votes. It depends on the percentages there. But in that above 80, we honor a Family Advocate Award, and that's a nice plaque. And again, I mean, you've been in the legislature, you know, you get beat up quite a bit. We feel like it's just important to say thank you. To just give honor to those that are standing in the gap, and you know, so it's statewide. We'll have typically 30 to 40 that will attend our gala and receive those awards. Oftentimes, we'll give a Life and Liberty Award to a particular legislator
just
that's
outstanding outside of
a particular life issue that's brought it all the way through the process, and the governor signed it. And you know, it's Republicans and Democrats.
Right.
This is if they vote for faith and family
this
values.
This is one time where we put partisanship aside and we recognize folks who are serving us in the legislature for what they do for us as it relates to the family, and
Absolutely.
we honor them by giving them these awards and recognize them. Like you said, you know, you get beat up every day as an elected official. Someone's never, you know, always going to have someone who's not happy. But this is just a time where we can say, hey, thank you for what you've done. And if you're someone who is pro-family, and that's a very important issue to you as you're getting ready to elect or vote for someone, this is a great resource for the folks to go to see how that person might have voted while they were in the legislature. And again, when I was there, it was a great honor. I always looked forward to receiving that. Patrick Henry, in particular, that was the one that you strive for. And the gala was fabulous. And so where is that going to be held this year, and what's the date on that? And
this year is Thursday, September the 21st. It's going to be held at the Church, Baton Rouge. And again, you can go to lafamilyforum.org, and we've got some sponsorship opportunities there. But it'll be about 500 pastors, business leaders will sponsor tables, and then we bring in the legislators. Mike Johnson, that was on earlier, used to MC it.
Yeah.
Now that he's typically voting that time of year in D.C. at that.
Well, Dale, thank you for what you all do, and thank you for the gala, and for honoring the folks that cast the votes the way they should. And again, they can go to the website, the folks, and see how their legislators are doing. So thanks for coming into the studio today and joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate what you do. This is the Moon Griffon Show. We've got to go to a break, and on the backside we'll see Stephen Dwight, Representative Stephen Dwight. Welcome back to the Moon Griffon Show. I'm Brett Geymann, your guest host for the day, filling in for the vacationing, surfing, fishing, beach-going Moon Griffon down somewhere on the Florida Gulf Coast, Brandon?
Yeah, he's doing it all. He's doing it all over this week and a half that he's off.
Big Money Moon. That's what we're going to start calling him. Big Money Moon. So glad to be your host for the day. We've had a great show. We're going to go back now to state issues. I'll finish up with some budget and tax reform and fiscal cliff talk, trying to get our house in order in Baton Rouge. We have joining us on the phone freshman legislator Stephen Dwight. Stephen, are you with us?
I am. Hey, Brett.
How you doing, Stephen?
I'm good. I'm good.
Now, let's see. You're a member of the Ways and Means Committee, correct?
Ways and Means. I had, the guy that I took his spot told me that would be a good idea, and I'm still trying to track it down and talk to him about it.
I don't know who that guy was, but don't listen to him. So I'm a little familiar with your district, and I'll just tell the listeners as you begin to give us your update and your thoughts that you represent a district that actually voted to not renew a school tax that paid for a sales tax that paid for the building and construction of a new school right on the main road in your district. And that is the mood of the electorate right now. Whether it's right or wrong is debatable, and we can certainly talk about that. But that is the mood of the electorate right now. And you guys are facing a fiscal cliff of $1.6 billion approximately dollars coming up when the 1 cent temporary sales tax falls off. What do you think is going to happen? Because I know you guys fought hard in the past session, did a magnificent job trying to hold spending, trying to hold the line, trying to do a standstill budget, all the things that you guys proposed. Fell a little bit short, but you guys certainly picked up momentum. Give us your thoughts on what you think is coming, and how do you think we can deal with some of these issues?
I'm glad you brought up the sales tax with the school, but also in my district was a renewal for a recreation tax for the children, for the baseball fields and stuff, and that was also voted down. So it was a loud message to me that my district, our district, does not want increase in taxes or more taxes. They want us to live within our means.
Yeah, and those
and
are the same.
It was a loud message sent to me, and I tried to vote that way, and I'll continue to try to vote that way because I think that's what we need to do in state government. Look, it's grown too much. It's grown out of sight, and we need to pull the reins back a little bit and see what we can do. Now, with that said, we have the $1.6 billion fiscal cliff with the penny rolling off. There's a lot of things that we need to do. We're going to be relying on Cameron Henry, some of those guys on appropriations, Blake Niguez, Mark Abraham from this area, to try to make all the cuts that we can to see where we need to fill that gap. Where we go from here. There'll be a lot of proposals, but they won't be new proposals. I mean, we've heard everything since I've been there sitting on Ways and Means. There's no new ideas coming up. Nobody's really thinking outside the box. There's sales tax, there's income tax, there's property taxes. We just don't want an increase in taxes. We want to live within our means and see what we can do to get there. I think there'll be some type of combination of all of it to try to get us there, but I'm one that does not want to renew the penny. I started a temporary measure to get us through, and I don't want to renew it, but I think some type of the penny is going to probably be renewed. Hopefully not the full amount.
Well, I think the reality
like being the number one sales tax in the country. I mean, we're known for a lot of things. That's not one I want to be known for.
Well, and you bring a good point, and Stephen, I think the reality is, while you represent a district that at one point passed a recreation tax and a school tax on themselves so they could improve the community, turn around a few years later and voted against the renewal. And so that is the mindset of the electorate right now, and those are the folks you represent. And no one, or most people that you talk to on the street, don't want to give any more money to government. They want them to live within their means. But you guys facing a $1.6 billion shortfall, which simply means to this that that's what you would have to reduce next year in order to drop the 1 cent. Now, some of us might say, oh, just cut it, let's cut it. But the reality is you probably cannot cut that much money in one chunk. So it's going to take some reform measures, some gradual steps in the right direction. And so, you brought up the point that there may be some percentage that you have to do, even though you don't want to, but that may be part of an equation to get you where you need to be.
I think that's exactly it. I think we're going to have to come up with some type of equation to balance everything. We don't want winners and losers. We want everybody we want to broaden the base. We want to lower the rate, broaden the base. That's what we're trying to do. That's what we're attempting to do. And we don't want losers. We don't want winners. We don't want losers. It's going to be tough. Even the gasoline tax that was brought up last session, the mindset of our constituents are prove to us that we can trust you, and maybe we will. And I think that's what people don't have trust in government right now. And they see the waste. You hear about it all the time. You see the waste in government, and our constituents just do not trust our officials on how to spend the money. And that's a problem that we need to address.
And again, another good point, the gasoline tax. We've had the Times program, and many people have not seen a positive result from that. Whether you can certainly make an argument that they did a good job with it, but you can make an argument that they didn't. But the fact is that people don't trust government. You walked into a huge mess when you showed up 2 years ago. That's been going on for decades, or at least a decade, and you're now challenged with this problem of solving the problem. And it's very, very difficult to get there. Whenever you try to make the cuts, as you saw in the sessions, what you guys go through, that everybody is beating you over the head, like, oh, don't cut me, and don't cut the universities. We have a great new university president coming in McNeese that we're all excited about. We want McNeese to be on solid ground, but at the same time, Stephen, and there's only a bucket of money that's only so full, and we can't keep going back to the taxpayer. So very, very difficult problem to solve, and I don't know really what you guys are going to be able to do, without some very, very tough choices.
We do have some good leadership with Taylor Barra. He's going to put together a plan. He and Cameron Henry and Neil Abramson, chair of Ways and Means. And I think they're going to put together a plan. Lance Harris also, that I think we need buy-in. The problem is we need buy-in from 70 reps on the House side, and that's a tough vote to get to 70 to make everybody comfortable with whatever it is we want to do. But I thank you for your efforts when you were in there, because in this last budget we didn't have one-time money. And I think in the past during some of your terms, you fought that, and you made sure that we didn't have these gimmicks and this one-time money in the budget. And we now have the Geymann rule, that we get to stand up. Butch Spear, the clerk, stands up and says whether or not there's one-time money in the budget, and there wasn't this time. And I thank you for your efforts in that, because we're chipping away at reform. I mean, we can't get there overnight, but each year that goes by, we're chipping away and trying to get it back to where we have the trust of the people.
Well, Stephen, I wish you wouldn't have said anything nice about me. I feel like I have to buy you a hamburger or something now for lunch. And but I do appreciate the nice comments. If you could, I know you're driving, I know you're busy, but can you stay with us just after the break and finish up? I have a couple more things I want to talk with you about, and
Sounds great.
And we have a caller we're going to take right after the break as well. If you can just stay with me.
Sounds good.
All right, this is the Moon Griffon Show. Going to the break. Welcome back to the Moon Griffon Show. I'm Brett Geymann, your guest host for the day, taking the place of the vacationing, surfing, beach-going Moon Griffon. We are on the line with Representative Stephen Dwight, a member of the House Ways and Means Committee, one of the conservatives who've been fighting to get the fiscal house in order. We appreciate what he's done, and he's joining us after the break to continue that discussion on where we're headed. Stephen, are you still with us?
Still got it, yeah.
All right, man. So one quick thing before we take a call while you're on with us is the word reform. I'm worried about some people, what they think the word reform means, because I know what we mean and what you mean, but some suggest reform means how do we generate a whole bunch more money so we can keep funding the wish list that comes down from the administration. So Do you think, as a member of the committee that actually does taxes and tax reform, do you see anything moving in the right direction as far as some good reform that will help small businesses and individuals and families?
We had, from the Ways and Means standpoint, we had a couple of reform bills that did not get all the way through the process, but they are bills that I supported. Representative Villiers and Zerang filed some. And then there was also another bill filed by Chairman Abramson regarding the gas tax, and that was something that actually passed both houses and was vetoed by the governor. But these were mechanisms that were going to be put in place to give people the confidence back in government to make sure that it is spent correctly. But look, I mean, we have a spending problem in Louisiana. You know, when the budgets come out, it is a wish list. It's not how you or I would operate our business. I had to learn that very quickly when I got down there. That's not how you operate a government. Is not how you operate a business, and it probably should be. I don't think there would be a successful businessman that would get down there and do some of the things that comes out of Baton Rouge. But we're making baby steps, and we're going to get there.
Well, and the challenge for you guys is, and I want the listeners to understand this, is that there are a lot of needs in the state of Louisiana. There are a lot of constituencies that come to you and ask for help. Universities, hospitals, healthcare, infrastructure, roads, coastal, and the list goes on and on. All important things. But what you, as a legislator, have to do is figure out how to best prioritize the money that is available and yet not outspend the economy. And unfortunately, leading up to your term, when you took over, the legislature has historically outspent the economy, and therefore you've got this huge mess on your hands, and you guys are just trying to deal with it. So if you don't mind, we're gonna take a call while you're on the line.
Sure.
We're gonna go to Ted in Marrero. Ted, are you with us? Ted. Hello, Ted. I think Ted bailed on us, Brandon. Well, I guess he couldn't stay long enough, Stephen. So,
Guess not.
But back to what I was saying earlier. Do you think that you guys still can hold the momentum you had from the previous session, where you guys did a great job in trying to hold the line and keep spending at a standstill so that you can mitigate some of that $1.6 billion shortfall? Do you feel like we keep that momentum, or did we lose a little bit at the end when we lost the vote, the key vote?
We lost some at the end, but from a messaging standpoint, I think we're winning that. We're starting to win that war. We're starting to turn it where our message is getting out. We want to shrink government. We want to hold back. We want to increase the rainy day fund. We want savings. We don't want to spend as much as we've been spending. Look, I'd love to fully fund everything, but we just don't have the money to do it. At home in our business, if we don't have the money, we just don't make those expenditures and don't make those things happen. We don't go on the vacations that we want to go to. I mean, look, everybody wants to go to Hawaii on vacation, but sometimes you can't do that.
Right.
And that's what government needs to do. We just need to come in, prioritize. There are a lot of things we've been neglecting. We've been neglecting the roads and infrastructure and, the universities, keeping everything up at the universities. And universities have taken a cut. This year they didn't, thank goodness. But there's a lot of things that I would love to fully fund. We just don't have. We just don't have it,
right. And that's what people need to realize, is that you guys have limited dollars, and you have to, by the Constitution, balance the budget every year. And so it is a game of moving money into the areas that you feel are the priorities. And in all honesty, from what I see, when healthcare consumes the biggest portion of the budget and has the highest growth of about 11% compared to a 2% economy, it's really sucking up all the air in the room. I know we have a lot of healthcare needs in this state, but boy, we got to figure that one out real quick. And Steve, we're going to go to Steve in Columbia. Steve, are you with us?
Yes, sir.
How you doing, Steve? What's on your mind?
I was wanting to ask the representative, what can just everyday citizen do to force the hand of our senators? I mean, I agree with the House. What they tried to do was right on, and the Senate just bulldozed and wouldn't budge a bit.
Stephen,
what can we do as citizens?
Stephen, did you hear that?
Reach out to your senators. I mean, you reach out to them. I try to return every phone call and every email that comes to me. And I hear from my constituents. I send out before we go into session, I send out a poll asking for feedback, and fill those out. Give the feedback to those elected officials, because term limits. There's 3 terms, or we can vote them out. And each person's district is different, but they need to hear from you. That's what I would do. Come down to the Capitol, go visit with them in the off season. Everybody would love to have a cup of coffee at any time, I'm sure.
Representative Dwight, don't you feel like the Senate is moving toward the House mentality of budget issues to some degree?
I think so. Yeah. We're picking up more and more support over in the Senate side. I think there's some senators that like what we're doing, and we're getting more and more support from the Senate side because they see what we're trying to do. They see what our big plan is, the big picture, and they see that that's where Louisiana should be trending, towards what we are trying to do. And I think, like I said, we're winning that message war. There's just some battles out there that we haven't come out on top, but I think in the long run we're going to be much better off.
Yeah, I think you guys, again, I think I did a magnificent job. Boy, I was cheering you on from the sideline as the House actually got enough votes, at least for the majority of the session, to hold the administration in line on their spending. And look, I know there's some good things that were in that additional $220 million that got put on at the end, the growth in the budget that got added. And we all want to do that, but what you all were arguing was we're tired of the mid-year cuts. And so let's hold the line, and then we won't have to be dealing with a $200 to $300 million shortfall come December that we've had for the past, 14 sessions or something, right?
Right, yes. We know it's going to happen. Yeah. We know we're not estimating right, and we know we're going to have a mid-year shortfall. So why not address it now rather than make those cuts later? I couldn't agree more. Yeah,
and the argument that comes from the administration side is, well, Representative Dwight, what would you cut? And they always want to throw that back at you and put the burden on you to figure out, okay, you're going to cut higher ed, you're going to cut health care, who are you going to cut? And I think the argument ought to be is tell us what the right amount of money is that we have coming in, and then let's prioritize. Instead of
That's right.
this big wish list and then making you as a rep have to figure out what to cut, why don't you give us the amount of money that the economy can sustain and let us prioritize those dollars as we see fit? We
wanted a standstill budget, and something that made me just pull my hair out, when we were debating all this, someone from the administration came down and told me, well, Stephen, this is how we've always done it. And that made me just want to pull my hair out. It's like, well, it's not working. It hasn't worked for X number of years. We need to change. We need to that's the perfect reason why we should make this change.
They used to, hey, I'm laughing when you said that, because when I was sitting in the Appropriations Committee, they'd always say, well, this is just how we've always done it. And our friend John Schroeder, who's now running for treasurer, used to say, hey, we're just going to buy that T-shirt, and I don't want to hear that anymore. So it's just because that's the way we've always done it doesn't mean that it's still working. Beryl Amadei on the show earlier suggested maybe we need to sunset some of the constitutional dedications, and you guys need to deal with statutory dedications and free up your flexibility to prioritize what's important at the time so that you guys can do a better job and live within your means. And so hopefully you guys can head in that direction as well.
No doubt. Those are bills that I've supported in the past sessions, and I will continue to support. I supported Chairman Abronson's bill for a constitutional convention. I think we need to make some changes for the betterment of the state. And some people need to bite the bullet and make the tough vote.
That's right. Well, look, we appreciate the work you've done. I know as a 2 years coming in, you walked into a mess, and you've done a magnificent job. We appreciate what you've done for us. Representative Stephen Dwight, a member of the House Republican delegation and also a member of Ways and Means Committee, which does the taxes and tax reform. So very, very key player in what's coming up in the near future to fix our fiscal house. And Stephen, we appreciate you taking time and appreciate what you've done, and keep up the good work, man.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I enjoyed it. It was fun. Thanks.
All right, buddy. Thanks for the call. Brandon, it's been a great day, and man, I can just see Moon in my head trying to surf at Panama City Beach or something. I don't know. It's just I don't know. I don't know what to even think about that.
I don't know either. I'm enjoyed you coming in For sure. Did a great job as always, man. And it's your second time getting to do this, man. Yeah. So it gets easier and easier, huh?
I don't know. Whatever you say. If you want to talk budget, I can usually get through that somehow or another. But thanks for having me here, and it really has been fun. And I'm glad Moon got to get away. I can't believe he was a fishing champion of the tournament. And
and you know what's funny? He had been telling me he was in a slump. He had been doing terrible in the past few tournaments, and that normally that means you're going to get out that slump in a big way, and that's exactly what happened for Moon. So I'm sure he's going to come back Monday and talk about it.
Yeah, well, remember this. He has to wear a McNeese hat. Next time I'm a guest.
I want to see that.
Oh, yeah. No, we all want to see that. Yes. And I want to make him wear the McNeese hat next time I'm a guest on his show.
Nice.
And so we're going to look forward to that as well. So,
awesome.
Man, I appreciate you having me on. And
thank you.
All right. Thanks for listening to the Moon Griffon Show.